The good old days, the wonder years, these are just a couple names for life 50 years ago. Us millennials couldn't possibly understand how simple and wonderful it was back then. We just stare at our phones all day and watch trash media, right? Well, I'm here to tell you why life is better now than it was 50 years ago, starting with technology and social media, then moving to medical breakthroughs, and finishing with the political and economic situation then and now. Our personal devices we have, our phones, our social media, they may be distractions and they don't come without downfalls. Sometimes people waste their lives in their computers, but a lot of the time they help make our lives better. All this progress in cell phones was because of the rise in computers and because the size of them has shrunk from the size of a room to the size of a human hand. With all this new portable technology, the opportunities arose for social connections through our devices. Suddenly, we could send letters and messages using email. In 1967, if you wanted to send a letter, you had to send it through the Postal Service. The only upside I see to that is nostalgia, but if you have an urgent message, then email will come in handy. Speaking of urgent, social media can be useful in disaster situations. When phone service is down or all else fails, you can turn to Facebook, Twitter, or hundreds of other apps designed to help you contact your loved ones or inform others of danger. Just as social media can be useful in emergency situations, it can also make it easier for people to donate money for worthy causes. GoFundMe is just one site where you can start fundraisers for virtually anything. According to technotification.com, there are over 1 billion users active on Facebook and even more on Twitter. Can you think of a better place to advertise or share information? People are more easily informed on current events now as a result. One of the basic goals of humanity is to make life easier and to invent things so we can do less work. We're always finding better, faster ways of doing things, and that's the reason why we invented computers in the first place. Technology isn't just used for entertainment, though. Another way it's used is in medical breakthroughs. In 1967, they were just getting over polio, and the first successful heart transplant was achieved. Nowadays, however, we have so much more knowledge, and like I said, technology. From bionic prosthetics to nanobots that can enter your bloodstream, our ways for helping people have went up exponentially. Surgeries generally aren't as risky anymore, and especially childbirth. According to Rewire.com, many women in the 60s went through what was called a twilight sleep. They would be given morphine and scopolamine, and the baby would be removed with forceps, which usually resulted in a lot of bruising of the child. Afterwards, the women would have no idea what had happened. That sounds like a good thing, but what really happened is the women would go psychotic, they would hallucinate and react violently, and the staff would have to tie them down. The drugs didn't even suppress the pain either. They just gave you a retroactive memory loss. Luckily, we put that out of practice. To take your mind off that, here's a couple interesting inventions that came about after 1967. LASIK, a laser surgery to correct eyesight, was invented around 1970, but wasn't approved for public use until 1995. As stated by medicaldaily.com, there are also procedures to completely fix blindness and deafness using cell-growing technology and brainstem implants. The same cell-growing science has been used for cloning animals and growing new replacement body parts like ears, noses, and inner organs like windpipes. The possibilities are endless. Aside from medical breakthroughs, though, our history here in America is not the most favorable. We all remember the 1960s as being a time filled with racism. Peace protests and riots were both a common occurrence. Lyndon B. Johnson passed the Civil Rights Act in 1964, but people were still hated. Minorities have more rights now than they did then, and I think this is the best way we have improved. We also know that the Vietnam War was raging in the 60s and is infinitely more devastating than our most recent wars, the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. The total U.S. casualties for Vietnam were about 47,000 people, and our modern-day wars has cost us the lives of about 2,000. The economic situation has also changed since 1967 because the economy was actually slightly worse back then. That sounds hard to believe, but just because you get candy for a penny doesn't mean everything was perfect. According to my table here, the U.S. Census Bureau and the peoplehistory.com, the average income in 1967 was about $7,300, but when we account for inflation, it's about $52,456, which is a lot less than 2016. The average price of a new house for us is higher, but with our higher income, we should be able to afford it. And the gas prices were about the same. On a small side note, I've heard some people talking about how the dollar is used to be backed by gold, and now the dollar is losing its value because there's less and less gold to back it, but that's not true because it hasn't been backed by gold since 1971. And also, the dollar, in a sense, hasn't really lost its value because our income has risen along with all the prices of everything. As you can see, even though life a half century ago has been painted with a nostalgic glow, the life we live now has much more convenience, comfort, and although it's more chaotic sometimes, we have stepped forward into a new era of innovation. Our technology and social media, medical breakthroughs, and economy are things we should appreciate and then realize that life is definitely better now than 50 years ago. Thank you.